if you look at Syracuse, if you look at Rochester, they're very concentrated, right? If you look at Utica, it's on the eastern edge of Oneida County and spills over into Herkimer County. And you got Rome all the way on the other end of the county, right? Put it all together and it's a lot bigger than people's impression of Utica at 60,000 people.
Right.
And I think we're losing the game here. Whether you look at congressional redistricting, where now the hub seems to be Syracuse instead of having our own hub. Whether you look at economic development, where all of a sudden Micron is good enough for Syracuse, but Utica was too small even though it was in the game first, or the Mohawk Valley. Something has to be done with future political leadership to say, how do we tie this region together better so that the governor doesn't misunderstand it, so that business leaders don't misunderstand it. We had the CEO of Wolfspeed say Utica was too small for the plant that they actually ended up picking North Carolina for, right? And we're here with 600 jobs that are not yet transformative. They've added a nice niche to the region, but we haven't seen the transformation that Syracuse is going to see with Micron. What thoughts do you have on how do we start to create a much more cohesive story beyond the work that's already been done? And I'm not discrediting that in any way.
We always bill Utica as 62,000 people. I'm going to go again to bring.
It's how we tell the story.
It's how we tell the story wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. I've had this discussion with higher level officials at this point. I'm like, guys, when we are talking publicly, we need to realize that's global reach at this point with how media functions. We have to stop saying Utica is 60,000 people. Why? Well, for one thing, the greater Utica area alone is over 120,000. And then, like you said, you add in Rome and the county, you're over 230,000. You talk about Herkimer, which is Ilion, Mohawk, Little Falls, etc. You have a giant mass of people here.
Exactly.
And we just sell it short. We have a theme over the past decade of purposefully selling ourselves short to get something from Albany. We need this because we're stuck in this rut. We need this because we have nothing. We need this because we only have 60,000 people. Well, now that we're growing, now that we have all these things coming online, now that we did build the road between Rome and Utica, now that Herkimer's business park is taking off and all these things are happening, that has to be built into an overarching marketing plan for business development.
That would be great.
And that's the reality of it. When I take that office in January, that's going to be huge. This isn't going to be like the Utica IDA trying to figure this out. This is going to be intergovernmental work that has to be done so that we can appropriately market this entire region.
If I look at some of the problems, whether it's gun violence, homelessness, mental illness, we have the problems seemingly on the scale of New York City. And I lived there for 30 years, and I'm telling you, I didn't see the same amount of mental illness, homelessness, and gun violence in my time there as I do now in my neighborhood in East Utica adjacent to Cornhill today. How will you, and by the way, the mental illness part of this, whether it is causation or not, correlates very strongly with the state decision to close adult inpatient treatment at the psychiatric center. How will you start to try to address those issues? Because they not only affect commercial corridors, but you see it in the neighborhoods as well.
We really do have more of a small town feel and culture and community, but at the same time, we have all the things a big city has. We're standing in front of a giant train station, and we also have the big city crime, like you said, right? The Utica Police Department has coordinated efforts with FBI, DEA, multiple different grants, which allow our actual police officers to work in other counties that are adjacent to us, in other municipalities that are adjacent to us. We also
By the way, I think that's a bright spot in all of this, is the UPD.
No, so we have the forensics lab, the Crime Analysis Center, okay, which is networked into many other municipal databases. When you do see an uptick of activity, say we link it to gang violence, you see it come back down. Because we are absolutely on top of tracking down how these crime patterns rise up and then how to knock them back down. We have the actual crime I discussed, where it's digital forensics, et cetera, all that stuff. We're solving a gang-related violence, those types of things. Now that is related to mental illness and drug use, but those crimes are different than the crime you're talking about day in and day out that you see adjacent to your neighborhood.
Crime may be not somebody committing something, but someone suffering on the corner without anyone having the ability to care for them, and they need institutional care.
Yeah, it's like human blight, legitimately.
Exactly.
Right? So again, working with the county, working with the state, working with other mayors, okay?
Yep.
One of the other things I would like to do, which I can't promise this right until I'm in the office, is actually sit down with, say, the mayor of Binghamton, who has similar issues because it's another metro rural area, and come together and create a presentation to which we can present to Albany and say, listen, this is the result of 4 to 5 decades of this issue eroding our cities. Here are the actual solutions we would like to see to back that up. So we do need more, mental health case work in how we actually try to transition people back into society.
I think we're fortunate we have the beds because we have a facility that's still very modern in West Utica.
Right.
We have a governor, and I'm not a big fan of big government, but she said we're adding more beds. Mm-hmm. So there's an opportunity, I think, fairly quickly for whoever comes into office to tap into that and say...
And then I've been paying close attention to that because we have a vacant facility, which is being used, but largely vacant facility.
Maybe it's underutilized.
Underutilized is a better way to put it. Yep. You can't hold people against their own will. So if people want to leave, they can.
Right.
And I'm not saying we have to do that, but we need to present ways in which people have the actual facilities around them and the care they need so that they can transition.
Just in general on neighborhoods, can you comment what your thinking is there? Part
of our prioritization is going to be we have to prioritize neighborhood preservation. Part of that is codes and nuisance abatement. We have to have an actual action plan to ramp that up within the neighborhoods. That needs to be a 3-month check-in, a 6-month check-in. If we're not making actual tangible improvements to that process, then we need to come back to the drawing board, see what we're gonna do. Same thing with DPW. Okay, the parks maintenance. I'm not talking about Proctor Park right now.
Yep.
You saw the influx of ARPA, and all of a sudden, we're dumping all this money into the parks. All of a sudden, we're focusing on the little parks again. Well, for the past 8 years, I've been council president saying, we have these surpluses. We do have time, but we're not managing it appropriately. We have to maintain our neighborhoods. We have to do a refocus to the residential. But there's smaller business districts. You asked about the contrast between downtown versus neighborhoods. We have business districts in each of our neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
We aren't addressing anything in those business districts. A lot of what's been addressed on Bleecker Street, for example, was due to private investment in the buildings, not the city investing in the infrastructure around those buildings, right? When small to medium-sized businesses and the middle-class businesses that are local invest in the community, there has to be a response from the city because they are now creating more tax revenue, not just for Utica, but also for the entire county and state. There has to be that give and take, right? And if we don't do that, this goes back to even bringing in big business, right? People need to live somewhere if they're working for big business. People need to live somewhere if they're working for small business. And we have to have that balance.